What's going on, people? This is going to be a little test. I don't even know where the fuck I'm going to be able to leave this. Wow, that's fucking close as shit, yo. Oh, not the greatest angle either for me. I'm in a different car. I'm in a new car. My new car. Well, it's not new. It's my second vehicle. Hyundai Santa Fe Sport. 4-cylinder, a little cheaper on gas for me to go to Ottawa and back. It wasn't something we were going to purchase because, truth be told, we don't absolutely need two cars, being that my wife works from home. And the Pathfinder is a 7-seater, it might be 6-cylinder, a little more on gas, spending somewhere from $250 a week gas. But I had some car trouble with my 2018 Pathfinder. It's running now, but there's some damage to the engine, which is kind of shitty. I don't want to say it's a lemon, meaning that it was fucked from the beginning. It might have been some preventive maintenance that we hadn't done. All the driving that I do probably would have been important to really do oil changes more often than they tell you to do them. But I hadn't done that. So but yeah, I'm just trying to test the audio in this car. Alright, sorry about that. See if I can get this in here somewhere and look at me. Ooh, not quite, eh? That ain't gonna work. That ain't gonna fly either. Fuck, it's in the way. Ooh, that looks like a good spot. Unplug the phone. Sorry, everybody. Alright, so sorry about that. Didn't want the Bluetooth audio to kick on. I don't know if I already said that or not. Just cut me off. But anyways. But yeah, so that's Mission's Pathfinder. It's running now. Initially, we were told we might need a whole new engine. Luckily, to fix what is wrong with the engine is probably the amount of time it would take to potentially not even really fix the problem. The amount of time it would take to potentially not even really fix the problem. So it's one of those things that it's kind of beyond my comprehension, to be honest, right now. But that won't be for long. But get over. Don't hit my new car. Guy's already passing the truck. So I'll have to look into that so I can understand it more. When I do, I'll let you guys know. But it's working, so we definitely have that vehicle to be able to do our driving around. Definitely, it's able to go on highways that are 80 up to 100. The problem lies whenever you are continuously going somewhere like 3,000 RPMs, which is what you do when you speed up on the highway, pass cars and whatnot. But then you generally, stabilize out around 2,000 RPMs while you're going 100 or more. A little less when you're on the 80s. So it's a 6-cylinder, so you put the cruise on and it tends to go at faster speeds, lower RPMs. Whereas 4-cylinders are better for gas and city driving, but they'll burn more on the highway unless there's like an eco whatever on it. Sometimes cars nowadays are insane. But generally you burn more gas on 4-cylinder on the highway and you burn less gas on the highway with a 6-cylinder. City driving is the reverse. 6-cylinder burns more in town, 4-cylinder does not. All that said, I now have 2 vehicles. Both are in working order. But initially we were told we needed a whole new engine in the Pathfinder, which brand new engine is $10,000. Which now I got something to fucking try to fucking manifest $10,000 again for, I've done it before. I can do it again. So I'll be doing that, and that seems to be the easiest way to fix the issue is to get a brand new engine put in my 2018 Pathfinder. Because we're going to be paying that thing for, I think it's a 4 or 5 year term, which is what's really nice about this second vehicle. That's going to take WITCHCRAFT, is that, you know, when the other cars in good working order, I can leave it there for my wife, we've got all the kids at home, whatever. I use this one to and from work. But this one's only a 2-year term. We're paying less than the 2-year term for it than we are for the Pathfinder, and the 4-year or 5-year term. So after 2 years, we're going to own this bitch. So generally speaking, even if it took me 2 years to be able to safely have that 10 grand put aside for that engine, and I would still, you know, I have to make 2 car payments right now. But that's just because, like, I don't know if my Pathfinder's safe on the road, and I already missed a few days due to this craziness before I had the second car. So I didn't want to bring it on the highway and then it stops working. If we can get away with driving that thing around in town for a couple of years, and my wife to do her running around while I'm not home with the other car, so be it. You know, and it's a useful utility. I mean, in the summertime, she can walk and do her small running around by herself. It's good exercise. She kind of prefers that. But when it comes to doing groceries, it's very hard to do that with a child in a stroller. You know, she's just by herself. On top of that, COVID rules. It's hard to get places in town before things close. If you want the best deals to save some money, well, it's better off to do that. So, overall, I think it's a pretty good thing, having the 2 vehicles. At first, I was like, holy fuck, like, what is going on? Everything was going so great. And I mean, I know the nature of reality. I know everything has a pendulum swing to it. And, you know, I got down, I was down, like, fuck, man, I love that car. I was pretty upset that, you know, because I was under the assumption that it was fucking toast, which isn't the case, which is great. It's very cool too, because like, to go from a mechanic saying your engine's toast, you need a new engine. This is what Nissan told us. And then me doing sigils over and over again, prior to getting the information that my Nissan's going to be fine, it's going to be repaired, it's going to be in great working order, that's going to last us until the term's up, or until we get to update it, doing sigils over and over for that, and my ritual magic, just statement of intent, same dealio, doing that as well. And then my wife making jokes a few times, literally stating, maybe the Pathfinder just needs a few days over there and then it'll be fine. And I told her, like, babe, as much as I'm fucking, you know, magic believer and that things can change, I'm like, it's one thing for the cells in your body to heal a sick body, but for metal to, you know, fix itself, I don't see that being as plausible. But lo and behold, the day I go to pick it up, assuming that we're going to have to get it towed back, because I had to get it towed from Ottawa. That was quite the fucking mess. Last Thursday, man, I'm pissed. I had to pay for 50 kilometers, because it's about 102 kilometers from Ottawa to my town, and my insurance covers 50 kilometers anywhere. So I picked the other 50, which was $150, $3 a kilometer. Sucked dick, but it is what it is. So anyways, I'm assuming it sounded bad when it happened to me. Low in oil pressure, and then just stalling on me, and then me trying to do a couple things to get to work. Being in a really bad emotional state. Not being able to control my emotional state at all. Because I was trying a few magical things, but I was not able to control my emotional state. So I understand why they didn't work out. But, I mean, it takes time for things to go through and manifest to put energy into something. So to do spontaneous magic, it depends on how often you do reject the instant high and circumstances. But anyways, apart from all that, when we go to Nissan after my wife makes that joke, like, it just needs a few days. Well, you're right. And she runs, she's not knocking, I'll drive it all the way home. But otherwise, because we have to get on the road. The tow would not tow it from the garage to our house. It would tow it from a garage to a garage, or from the road to a garage, or from the road to my house. It won't go from a garage where it's supposed to get fixed, to my house. Still not fixed. So we were going there just to essentially put the car on the road and run a Nissan so we get free tow. She lit right up. She started right up beautifully. There was a little bit of knocking on first try, which I think they run in like 2 days. And then smooth ride all the way home. And I even took it to go to get smokes. About 20 clicks there and back. Smooth ride there and back. So, well, this is fucked. How the fuck does this happen? And I'm thinking in my head, like, wow, my wife spoke into existence, plus the magic I did, like, this is pretty amazing. But I'm still kind of being skeptical, even though I'm a firm believer that you can change and form your reality. Just certain things that happen spontaneously like that can also change spontaneously without putting enough energy into it for a period of time, to me, is very hard. However, it was about 5 days at this point of putting energy into it. So at the same time as I was casting to, I was thankful and grateful that I received a car at a very low cost, that was going to do our family well and be able to, everything we need. I was also doing magic to get my Pathfinder fixed, to get the money potentially needed. So I was doing simultaneous magic within the same intent to get a new vehicle and to fix the Pathfinder, or repair the Pathfinder, or find a way to get the money to fix it or have a reduced cost. So it was kind of a lot of scattered energy there. But nonetheless, as of this very fucking moment, I can positively say that, my Pathfinder works. Yesterday it was fine. This new car is working, seems to be in great working order. And, we got a better deal on it, cheaper, less time. 2 years goes by pretty fast, I mean, time goes by pretty fast in general, but 2 years can fucking fly by. But anyways, all that's to say is that's why I'm in a different car and having to test out the audio. It seems to be working, so, but I don't really know what to talk about at the moment because I've been very preoccupied the last 2 days. Now, the last video I made was during all this craziness, and I felt it best to not bring anything up while I was waiting for the response on us getting a new car, because, I mean, we've got credit, and we've paid some things off, especially with my Dodge Journey. It looks really good because the entire thing got paid off in full. So it's not like I traded that bitch in and added it on and anything. Like, I got paid full. But I mean, it wasn't me. It was thanks to my mother taking out a fucking loan, which once again I did magic. But to be able to pay off those cars and not have those debts, but the magic manifested. But it manifested in the form of my mother getting a fucking line of credit loan, and my acquaintances, friends, I guess you can almost say, at the car dealership that works kind of didn't really tell us how they were getting us the loan to get the Pathfinder. Ended up getting a big enough loan that enabled me to pay off the Journey in full, and the new loan was almost solely in my mother's name with me as like a co-sign, which is just to say I have my name on it. But anyways, so just more examples of how magic works, but you really have to bend your words and carve your statement properly. And, but in my defense, when I was carving those statements out, it was I wasn't assuming my mother was going to be on my car payment at the time. So, but nonetheless, now you know. But anyways, so all this is to say is that, I was preoccupied with all this. I didn't mention it in the last podcast because, I had enough to go through. I've had a few comments since then about my Illuminati editing the Bible episode. William Shakespeare taking the credit for not only plays, but, you know, editing the Bible when it was really Francis Bacon was a Mason, potentially an Illuminati member. Even James, King James, that everybody seems to love and thinks is divinely inspired to write or edit the Bible, was also a Freemason. I had a few comments on there from an old friend who likes to comment a lot whenever I speak about the Thunder Wizard. In my opinion, he has a emotional block, a mental, more emotional block when it comes to Thunder Wizard, because he's the type to believe in Jesus and has a Catholicism type religious outlook while being spiritual, potentially a New Age look. I think, anyways, and I hope I'm not offending him by saying this, and I mean, there's no disrespect that I'm not dissing you or knocking you. I mean, you have the right to believe whatever the fuck you want. If it serves you and works well and you're able to do, whether it's the shit I talk about, manifestation, or otherwise, I mean, fucking more power to you, bro. More fucking power to you. But commented on he disagrees with me and how he thinks T-Wiz studied the Bible but not as much, and his pastor knows more than him, and references people. Deleted his comments, so I don't know if I'm going to go through them. But who knows if I can derive a lesson and or connect what I'm talking about today to that, then, you know, I may. We'll see though. We'll see what's up. So anyways, yesterday at my house, my two step boys were kind of pissing me off. My oldest step boy, we caught, I needed a book bag, because yesterday I got a ride to work with a friend, left from work, drove me to the shop. My wife picked up the car in Ottawa yesterday, so she picked me up from work and brought me home. Prior to me going to work that morning, the night before, my wife grabbed Austin's book bag. I go through the book bag, see some grass looking shit in there. First glance I thought it was marijuana, but it was just leaves and shit. But then I look in another pocket and I see two things of oil that looks like vaping fucking oil or whatever it is. So I show her, so she said she has to have a conversation. But still not too pleased about that, because his father a long time ago gave him a vape with nicotine in it, because he's a fucking genius, that man. And we had a conversation about him not vaping and whatever else, blah, 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 blah. And it turns out he's still doing it. So she had a good conversation with him, but he didn't deny it, didn't lie. He was honest with us. He had his moment, but I mean, he's a 6'4", 280, almost 300 pound, you know, gonna be 16-year-old, full of testosterone. So I mean, getting angry, especially if he potentially bought those things, or they were gifts from his father, that doesn't seem much. He's always been very emotional when it comes to gifts from his father. You know, we can't fault him too much for that. Even Owen too. The problem with Owen is lying. So some kid he was talking to on Messenger, his Messenger and Instagram are connected to mine, asked if he smoked cigarettes and weed. He sent him a voice message saying, of course I do, for us. Which, when we asked him, he denied it all. He said, not that he didn't say it, obviously, because we had the proof, but that it was all a lie. And then, you know, this kid asked him for a dealer, and Owen says, okay, well, download Discord, or add me on Discord, I gotta download it first, we'll talk on there, because we don't have the app's not connected. So then we bring this up to him, and he says, no, it's just a joke, blah, blah, blah. And I don't believe him for a second. I'd rather be more honest with me and tell me exactly why. So if it was a joke, why are you joking about it? And then just be vague and whatever. But anyway, so last night, the day before he got in trouble for all this, he wanted to go to his friends. I didn't let him the same day of. The next day, I said, if you do these chores, you can go. His friend turned out to be grounded. Yesterday, while I was at work, he got to go to his friends. Austin was on the Xbox. He got home, kicked Austin off the Xbox, let him go on the Xbox. Austin wanted back on the Xbox after so many hours. Owen gets all pissed off, just fucking irate, and downright refuses to listen to his mother, who's asking him, telling him to get off. You're the boss, you're not, get off the fucking thing. Debating, arguing with her, yelling at her, disrespecting her. And, you know, to me, it's like, no, I kicked Austin off the day before when you wanted it. You went with your friends all day, it's not his fault. Whatever, blah, 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 blah. And he starts living back at me. And so, my mother is there because my wife was helping her out with some papers. lot, you know. Teenage boys, he's also going through puberty. He's getting pretty fucking tall. His voice is changing. So he's also getting testosterone. And so, like it, don't like it, I don't care. For me, the best method, especially for boys going through puberty, getting full of testosterone, need to be properly socialized in a day and age where we're social distancing, so it makes it twice as hard to socialize boys properly. And I'll tell you why that's important in a second. I've used, it's not fear per se, but it's a way of I guess fear, in the manner of when I yell, you do what I fucking say or else there's consequences. You know, I get respect because if I don't, I'm gonna fucking take you. Little Wayne, I believe in that. And it's always worked, and it's why I can most of the time just say something with a stern voice and they listen. If I have to yell, they know they listen, whereas Mom was talking, got to screaming over and over again, he was just saying, no, I'm not listening to you. Whereas when I finally got down there and yelled, he listened to me. My mother's there. She decides to get involved. It's like, Corey, stop, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, Mom, stop. And I'm still in yelling mode, so I can yell at my mom, which I don't like doing. I don't like doing that at all. I believe you should respect your mother, no matter your age. But she also shouldn't get involved during my reprimand, especially, you know, if I'm in the motion of anger, using that in a specific way. And it wasn't just I worked 12 hours yesterday, which I did, and I'm just tired, and you don't talk back, which is also true. But it wasn't just that, but that's what it was from her. She's like, look how much stress you're putting on yourself. It's not good to be that stressed, blah, 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 blah. Which, you know, if I was stressed, I would say she's got a point. But as soon as it's done, you know, I was more mad about the fact that she got involved while I was reprimanding and yelling at home, and when she should have just took me aside after and said, hey, this is why I think you should do that, and why I didn't do that when I raised you. But she didn't. Anyway, we didn't talk about it. But a minute after it happened, in case she fucking brought it up, or in case when I apologized, she brought it up. Is I need my boys who are getting testosterone, especially Austin. He's big enough, you know, and when she should have just took me aside after and said, hey, this is why I think you should do that, and why using that in a specific way. And it wasn't just I worked 12 hours yesterday, which I did, and I'm just tired, and you don't talk back, which is also true. But it wasn't just that, but that's what it was from her. She's like, look how much stress you're putting on yourself. It's not good to be that stressed, blah, 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 blah. Which, you know, if I was stressed, I would say she's got a point. But as soon as it's done, you know, I was more mad about the fact that she got involved while I was reprimanding and yelling at home, and when she should have just took me aside after and said, hey, this is why I think you should do that, and why I didn't do that when I raised you. But she didn't. Anyway, we didn't talk about it. But a minute after it happened, in case she fucking brought it up, or in case when I apologized, she brought it up, I was ready to go with my answer. And the first one, the reason why I do that is I need my boys who are getting testosterone, especially Austin. He's big enough to, if he was to channel it right, do it right, train, he'd be more powerful than me. He's got the potential to be huge, muscular, everything. Like, he's got that potential. He can't right now because I've got more lifetime using my muscles, working them out. I can lift more than him, and I already know that off the top. But it wouldn't take him very long to excel past me. That being said, he gets mad up at his mom one day, and his testosterone's through the roof. I need something in the back of his mind scaring him from pushing her, hitting her, doing something. Same way he's doing with his sisters. That is the fact that just him talking wrong and talking back and disobeying is enough to make me freak out. Imagine what would happen if he pushed or laid a hand on his sisters, even his brother. But boy, the way they fight sometimes is I reprimand and discipline that a little differently. He's so close to being just so competitive. There's so much of that you can't even fucking really, you really gotta be careful with that. But that's the first and foremost, which also plays into the socializing. So when I say socializing with these boys, the main part I'm trying to talk about is respecting authority. So if my two boys can't respect their mother's authority, and I haven't been using fear to command respect and get them to listen, then they're going to go through life thinking they don't have to listen to their teachers, they don't have to listen to future employers, university, other adults, people in stores, everything, all that stuff. That's what would end up happening. They don't have to listen to anybody. They run the show at home, and that's going to also add to their attitude because they're their kids, right? They don't know much else. So what happens at home forms their perceptions of what happens outside. Whereas you and I, depending on your age, you're an adult like me, you know at home I can set the role of father and be a good father best of my ability. I can be a role model, so to speak, and be able to teach my kids right from wrong without actually being a perfect role model all the time. You know, obviously I'm a flawed human being, but I can imitate what the perfect ideal or role model should be for these boys, even though I'm not a perfect human being. That's kind of what I mean. I can separate the two parts. They are learning, they are still absorbing. They need to know that Austin and Owen has to respect their parents because they don't respect us at the very least. They don't respect anybody else from their bloodline, and we do everything for them. You know, you can say it's easier to respect other people sometimes, whatever, but I think that depends on how you were raised, what was implanted in you, and so on and so forth. So that's the first and foremost thing when I say they need properly socialized, which hits on everything from job, from going to university, from finishing school. If they don't respect their teachers, then they're going to have a problem. If they don't respect me and my wife, then I don't respect their teachers. They're going to have a problem with authority, meaning kicked out of school, like me. Not that I disrespect my parents, but, you know, my parents would ground me, and I would just stay out. Wouldn't listen to them. And I never disrespected them in a rude way, yelling in their face or anything like that. But the disrespect I did was, okay, I'm grounded, I'm going to go to my job, now I'm going to come home. Because if I come home, they're going to let me leave. So I had a bit of a problem with authority, which happened at school. I had problems with teachers, which then happened in jobs, which kept snowballing. And then I ended up doing a life of crime, being against the police, and then ultimately going to jail, and then having to re-enter the workforce and, you know, get this fucking problem with authority pushed out of the way so that I could work a job. So that's one of the reasons I get the respect test. Also because you should respect your fucking parents and they should all the shit you do for them. And you know, I mean, like when boys are going through their puberty and they're full of testosterone, it's easy for them to make terrible decisions based on emotion. Testosterone can fuel anger and get you in rages. And as most people may know, maybe not, anger is both a positive and negative emotion. You feel both positive and negative when you are angry, whenever there's a part of Mars coming out of you. That's why sometimes it feels good to get angry. So you add that to boys with testosterone and, you know, whatever, and, you know, you can see how this can snowball out of control. So to have something in there that is a flag for when they're going too far, especially with family, to be able to socialize them even though this is going on, get them to be able to be mad, feel their emotions, but still understand why, and then when they do what I say and ask, we reward them so that they know there's something there. By doing all that, I can properly socialize my two boys in this day and age where there's social distancing and they're not going to get their pure shit because you can't even hang out. Be able to be mad, feel their emotions, but still understand why, and then when they do what I say and ask, we reward them so that they know there's something there. By doing all that, I can properly socialize my two boys in this day and age where there's social distancing, they're not going to get their pure shit because you can't even hang out with the people at the moment and all this other shit. And so this is all stuff that I was preparing to say to my mother if the topic came up. The last thing I was going to say was the reason I wasn't stressed, I shouldn't worry about the stress, was that I was angry. This invoking part of anger, which for all the previous reasons already mentioned, is healthy and helpful because it helps remind them that their role, their place, that, yeah, you're a teenager, yes, you're gonna feel like shit's unfair, but when it comes right down to it, we say goes. And I'm gonna yell louder, and I'm gonna scare you, and get your respect, and get you to fucking listen to me and your mother. And I have my reasons for that. You won't understand them, but I have my reasons, and they are ultimately for your good. But the last thing I'd say to my mom, she's still a believer in God and Christ and all that. Once again, to each his own, you know. I'm not gonna tell her that's not right. Fuck, half the time I don't even know. I mean, I know. But it's like, anger is both a positive and negative emotion. We were created with the ability to be in fear and love. And as much as, you know, being in fear more than love is probably not beneficial, depending on where you are. You know, depending on where you live, it might actually be more beneficial. But depending on where you are, it may not be a good thing to be in fear of. But our Creator, God Himself, whoever it was, gave us both fear and love and the ability to use them for a reason. He also gave us the emotion of anger, invoking Mars, which is both a positive and a negative emotion at the same time. It feels good to get mad. There's a reason we have those abilities. There's a reason we are able to channel these. And if you can semi-consciously understand how and when you can use these properly, because you're never going to be able to do it always perfect. But then you can start understanding how these things are important and stop. Once again, my last video was about suppressing a part of yourself, how occult, women, the divine feminine, everybody says the Matrix is bad and all this shit. They're suppressing a part of themselves. Everybody's saying Lucifer, the devil, Satan, suppressing a part of themselves. Well, same fucking idea. If you are suppressing your anger, you're suppressing your Mars aspect of yourself. And yes, it might be a lower nature chakra or energy and all that other shit. But it's one you were given for a fucking reason. It's necessary. So you need to figure out a way to use it properly and not in a way that's going to harm you and your relationships. And, you know, when it comes to children, especially boys going through their testosterone stages, I think this is one of the best ways to do that. The one I just said. So that was all I was going to respond. And that's kind of what I want to get into today, is everything I just fucking mentioned. And talked about how these are fucking emotional states that are given to us, that we should utilize, that are important for a reason, and we have them for a fucking reason. So, you know, let's not suppress them. But anyways, I'm getting close to work. I don't even know if I know where I'm going yet. My boss is texting me, so continue this on the way home from the new car. Anyways, hope you enjoy so far. I'll see you in a bit. Alright, all done work. Friday. Hey, baby. Oh, the car. Gotta get it all clean. Sorry about that.
Call 844s.
Fucking music. Alright, so I was last speaking about the necessity of fear and appropriately using a screw in my pocket to sit on it. Appropriately using anger, how it's a positive and negative emotion all the same fucking time. So this plays into shadow side stuff, but not exclusively with just the shadow side stuff. But I mean, to me, in my experience, part of doing my shadow work was, in a healthy way, expressing my dark, deep, traumatic, the ones I know about, issues and emotions attached to those issues, releasing them to the point where I don't feel them anymore, which takes time. Now, that's not the complete thing, because I've talked many times. Most recently was, you know, healthy way expressing my dark, deep, traumatic, the ones I know about, issues and emotions attached to those issues, releasing them to the point where I don't feel them anymore, which takes time. Now, that's not the complete thing, because I've talked many times. Most recently was, looking at your fears that you have and facing them will bring you some enlightenment, but it might take you to the shadow side first. I spoke about in the past understanding that you have a killer inside of you, and the difference between someone doing shadow work and someone going to Walmart and freaking out on their baby because they haven't had a good night's sleep or a break in a while, and then they shake their kid because they just found out their husband cheated on them and they left them, and their kid stopped crying and they get no fucking rest. And sorry about that, I have to shit my car. Shift having a standard mode shit. But so then they use horrible, just because they have so much stress on their plate. Maybe they're losing a max, they just stress to the max. And instead of dealing with the fact that this baby's a lot, and your husband leaving you wasn't your fucking fault, and don't worry about the work part, we'll figure that shit out. There are things that you can do in the meantime and get money and whatever else, and instead of just putting all that in the back burner and just being like, no, can't get mad at my kid, it's just a baby, it's not their fault, blah, 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 and talking to somebody their problems, they just keep letting it build, and then they just fucking boom, and then something terrible happens. You're like, well, how did that happen? It's like, well, that's how that happened. They didn't allow that part of themselves, they didn't honor it, first of all, and they didn't allow to express it in a controlled way. This is why therapy, when you see psychologist, therapist, counselor, priest, whoever you can talk to get shit off your chest, just family and friends, is helpful. Because it allows you to get those fucking emotions out of your body. And there's healing in that. And so, that's, these are the three main ways that I do shadow work. And aside from that, you want to get into shadow work, we'll make a fucking sigil that you're thankful that you got through your shadow work, because then you don't fucking call that baby on. But it ain't gonna be pleasant, let me tell you. They never are, but they're useful and necessary when you're done them. Like, there's not just one shadow side or shadow work or I don't know all the names for it, but dark night of the soul. New Age is like, my dark night of the soul was so brutal, but now that it's over, I'm so enlightened. It's like, that's like this. There's no different than a born-again Christian getting Jesus to forgive them for all their sins, and then thinking they're self-righteous after, and I'm saved, so I'm good to go. But then when they get blocked up full of crap and they don't want to express it because they want to be a good Christian, which isn't a bad thing, but when they start, but it's not them, they're saved, so it's everybody else, well, then there's problems. Well, the person, the New Ager, going through the dark night of the soul once and thinking it's a one and done, and now I just gotta wait for my law of attraction skills to just come in, and I can just think about the money and get it, and we'll be set. And then the longer it takes for that to come, it's everybody else's fault around them, because obviously it's not them. They went through the dark night of the soul. It's no different there. It's just two different extremes. And it's something that, depending on you, your lifestyle, what you're doing, if you're doing something you love or not, if people in your life are supportive or not, you are going to have either more or less dark nights of the soul, shadow work, whatever you want to call it. Integrating the self, integrating your shadow. There's many different names for this fucking concept. Pick, I don't care. But you actively have to continue to do it. And the good thing about actively continuing to do it, now there are some times where, you do your first shadow work, do your second shadow work, do your third shadow work, but all of a sudden the fourth one's a doozy again. But all the other ones are kind of progressing. But that doozy came along because you need to experience it, and then it does keep getting better. It just keeps getting different. Like, for example, my whole car issue. I gotta let that fuck me up. And it's not, you can always get back more money. You can't get back more time. Alright, that's one of the main things I live by. Time is worth way fucking more than fucking money is. By a fucking substantial fucking margin. Okay? So,
when I had this whole car issue, I could let that fuck me up. And it's not, you can always get back more money. You can't get back more time. Alright, that's one of the main things I live by. Time is worth way fucking more than fucking money is. By a fucking substantial fucking margin. Okay? So, when I had this car issue, my Pathfinder, and we thought we needed 10 or 12 grand for an engine. Like, I was down, and I got the Captain Morgan out, and I fucking sulked, and I fucking bitched, and I whatever. And that was useful because I had to get those emotions out, but I wasn't doing it intentionally. I was just, moping or whatever. But because I've done this intentionally so many times, it ended up, as if habit, takes over. I ended up doing it in a controlled environment. I asked for time off from my boss properly instead of just not going to work and not calling in and just dealing with it later like I have in the past. I set it all up. I spoke to him, told him exactly what's going on, talked to people about it, whatever, and then eventually came to the conclusion that, there's people today that woke up and they found out their children had diseases. There's kids that woke up today with a dead parent or a terminally ill parent. People that woke up today with no food. There's some people that woke up today and, they're whatever. There's a bunch of shit that happens. And my entire family is healthy, and I'm complaining about getting a second vehicle. My wife's got my other vehicle at the fucking store right now as we speak. I'm complaining and thinking my life is so shitty and this is the worst thing that ever happened. And what happened? I got a second vehicle. It's like I turned this whole bad situation, dark night of the soul, whatever, into gold night of the soul. There's payments, extra payments, and that sucks because we don't really need two cars, but who cares? My biggest problem is that I have two cars and it's a little tight to afford it, but generally we can spend and we're just gonna come back on stuff like junk food and whatever else. It's like, well, fuck man, that's like a win-win. So whatever. It is as it is.
Alright, what's going on? Sorry about that. Okay, so new day, next day. I added a little bit to whatever. I don't know the last thing I was talking about. Maybe I should go look at that. Alright, refresh my memory. So, just to close off what I was saying there real fast. When I say soul, dark night of the soul turn to gold night of the soul. Because, there's multiple ways to look at everything, okay? And, the fact that I had to get a whole new car. I mean, shit would look bad whenever, like I said, the engine, we were assuming the engine was built, blown, done. We couldn't operate the car. And having to maintain that car and then pay for this car on top of it. So having two vehicles and only using one, that was the situation that I was pissed off about. Got through it, figured out, life's going to go on. We're going to make do. I will fucking conjure up 10 grand and put an engine in that puppy, and then we'll fucking be alright. Whatever I have to do. So I got through it. And then, as a result of that, and I think my magic and even the words must spell, my wife's not casting spells on purpose, but she said it and felt it and was hopeful and, let it go. That, maybe the car in a few days it'll be alright. And fucking sure enough, it was. I mean, it's not the most perfect working order, but it's going to do until my manifestation of 10 grand comes in to put that new engine in. So, but all that, I believe all this has been working out because of the fact that I dealt with the emotions as they came. I didn't just suppress them and say, what are you going to do? And really be upset about it and not let it out. I let it out. I dealt with it. Probably not in the best ways, the alcohol and all that I talked about, but fuck it, whatever. They're going to have crutches out there. People are going to use them. So I used that crutch. I got a few drinks in me. I dealt with it. I had a great night with my wife. We were great. And then everything ends up turning around and looking up. But I could have stayed moping, pissed off, just like, why me? Life sucks. Now I have two payments. I'm never going to get ahead. And these are all legitimate things I was fucking feeling. So, I mean, I'm not trivializing this. But I had those moments. I went through that, and I'd say in about, 48-hour period. then once I dealt with all that, realized that, man, everything could be a whole lot worse. Biggest problem I have is now I have 2 vehicles and I can only pay for one. Or I can only drive one and I have to pay for 2. But then once I got through that, now I have 2 vehicles and I can use 2 vehicles. And, something, if you're trying to conjure money, you're trying to fucking manifest money, they say to watch rich people, successful people, mimic their actions until their actions and the way they think becomes habitual for you. And once you start thinking like the wealthy people and act like the wealthy people, you no longer think the rich are just greedy and selfish and the problems of the world. And you start becoming what you want to be, then you will eventually start seeing change happen. You'll become them. I always do that. I have a mixture of successful people on YouTube with successful YouTube channels, successful with money and teaching how to deal with money, and successful magicians and witches that manifest their life, their reality. Those are the things I watch the most, so that those are the things that are programmed deep into my mind. And so when I have problems that come up, I'm not going to think like me, who's going to get all worried and anxious and all that. I'm going to think like the people I surround myself with, which are those people. And I'm going to start resolving my issues like they would. Likewise, things in my life will end up working out, becoming an up spiral rather than a down spiral. So wealthy people probably have 2 or more cars. So now I'm back in that owning a 2-car club, 2-car in 1 household club. My wife has a car, I have a car. Each in our fucking names, so to speak. So that's a pretty good thing, and that's why I said it's a gold night of the soul, because instead of having it all dark and shitty and my life fucking, seemingly falling apart before my eyes and not knowing how I'm going to pay for 2 fucking car bills, financing 2 fucking vehicles and all that shit, instead of all of that crap going through my mind and just moping about that shit, I changed it into I am a fucking wealthy man with 2 fucking vehicles now, and that's amazing. Great time for summer. We're gonna have a great time with this, and in 2 years this bitch will be paid off. The other one will be only 2 more years to go on it. And by then I've already manifested the new engine, so I'll have my Pathfinder will be like a brand new Pathfinder with a brand new fucking engine in it. Well, brand new for that year. Because you can always get an engine. Like that's the thing. Like I'm hoping the price will go down. And it should. The older the car gets, the older the less the engine should be. I could be wrong about that, but nonetheless, I'm starting to manifest 10 grand so that I can do it. And then it's like having a brand new engine, like no kilometers on it. You know what I mean? $10,000, putting that in. I know it's a pain in the car, but you know what I mean? So then I could be like, fuck, I have to save 10 grand and that just sucks. Or I can look at it like, well, no, I'm getting a brand new fucking car. And I'm only gonna have 2 years left to pay on this car. And it's not going to be like most people that have that thought form created. Like, yeah, as soon as the car's paid off, it's toast. You got to get another one. They create that. They like that being out there. They like people saying those lines because it keeps people re-upping, renewing their cars. Getting a brand new car as soon as their contract's up. Always being in debt. Well, that's not going to be the case for me because I'm going to have 2 years left, 2 or 3 years left owning on that car, and I'm going to have a brand new engine in it. So the likelihood of anything going wrong with the engine is going to be very, very little to none. So that's all I wanted to add on to there, is that I was able to spin that around. And how am I going to connect this all? Well, and I'm only going to have 2 years left to pay on this car. And it's not going to be like most people that have that thought form created. Like, yeah, as soon as the car's paid off, it's toast. You got to get another one. They create that. They like that being out there. They like people saying those lines because it keeps people re-upping, renewing their cars. Getting a brand new car as soon as their contract's up. Always being in debt. Well, that's not going to be the case for me because I'm going to have 2 years left, 2 or 3 years left owning on that car, and I'm going to have a brand new engine in it. So the likelihood of anything going wrong with the engine is going to be very, very little to none. So that's all I wanted to add on to there, is that I was able to spin that around. And how am I going to connect this all? Well, alright, so we're at a giant tiger. My wife came back, so that's why I had to stop. Oof. Alright, so how am I going to connect this all? Well, I was able to, by doing training for the last 5 years, so it's not like it's an easy thing. Anybody telling you the spiritual shit's easy to do, transformation shit's easy to do, they're fucking lying to you. The concepts
are easy enough to understand, logically, consciously. But putting them into practice is probably the hardest part. Sticking to them is the hardest part. Putting them into practice is the second hardest part. Once you start, you're good, you keep doing it, then sticking to them with people around you judging you and just your own self being sometimes lazy, sometimes, I can't remember the name of it, but the person that puts everything off, just not doing what you should be doing. That's probably the hardest part. But anyways, I don't need to talk about that. But 5 years of this training and going through dark nights of the soul, like I said earlier, it's not a one and done. Don't think because you had a dark night of the soul that you're done. You get multiple of them. And that's a good thing. It's not a bad thing. This is how you evolve. You don't just evolve once and boom, you're done. It's like, no. Life is always changing. Everything's always evolving. You can't understand all the secrets and the mysteries. Just, you dove into it and everything's not as it seems. We've been lied to, and the real way to do spirituality is to, use the planets, use your words have power. You understand all that stuff. It's like, okay, I'm done. It's like, well, no. I mean, that's a great start, but it's like, it's not done. Not by a long shot. So, but once you go through that, you realize all those things, you start getting your subconscious mind, then your subconscious, your reality, as you're developing new programming, your reality starts to change. And with that brings trials, hard times, things you have to strive through. And these are little tests to say, okay, is he going to stick to spirituality, or is he going to fold like a fucking piece of paper in the wind? And is he just going to say, fuck this spiritual shit? And then you get through that dark night of the soul, and maybe it's shadow work you have to do. Maybe it's not even shadow work yet, which is a good point. If you didn't even do shadow work yet, you're just being tested by life, and you're going through a hard time, then it's like, okay, if you think you're evolved after that, and that's it, and you're done, it's like, no, far from it. And I'm not saying this to scare anybody, but I want people to be prepared with what they're signing up for. One of my first podcasts was that the purpose of the transformation process is to get you ready sooner. So you go through your entire life to get one or two life lessons, and you get reincarnated. Let's say, this is just hypothetical. I'm not saying that's how it is, but what you're doing by diving into these mysteries is give me a bunch of lessons, as much as I can take on until the end. And this is probably why people that are super spiritual, like monks, practice all by themselves. It's probably too hard getting all these life lessons that are thrown at you. When you have people around you that depend on you and shit like that, it ain't fucking easy. Let me tell you that. But every time this happens, it's a good process. You get a little evolution every time, but you're not evolved. You're not transformed. You're not enlightened. You're more enlightened than you were previously. And shadow work is a big part of this. And I think the suppression of the deities, like I have already made the comparison from what I talked to last time to now, when it comes to Lucifer or the devil or Satan, people that are suppressing anger. Well, anger was the example I gave earlier, which is invoking Mars, which is one of Mars's entities that are associated to him, but like the devil isn't Mars. Well, the devil is Mars, but Mars isn't the devil, I guess is the best way to put that. Meaning, the entity of the devil is a derivative of Mars, but Mars is not only the devil. Mars is devil, it's Ares, it's the god of war, it's all the other pantheon names, gods that are like the planet Mars and invoke the same attributes. But anyways, all that's to say is by the suppression of the devil, Lucifer, whatever, a lot of people are in a state of they're fucking themselves over. Let's just say that. And that's how our society is made. I think the story of Lucifer is best.
Alright, what's going on? I'm glowing a bit because I'm up by a little fire. We had this fire pit in about 5 minutes because we had a couple people come over. Everybody's gone in the house now. Anyways, suppression of Lucifer.
the story in the Bible to me is a story to teach about pride. You know, there's something to be said about the 7 deadly sins. Associate those with demons, give them names. That creates thought forms. That's bad. But you go back to the early Greeks, and the early Greeks thought of demons as daemons and as a part of you, a part of your conscience. Not the conscious mind as we understand it, but like as a sitcom with a little devil and a little angel on his shoulder. You get thoughts at the same time, and you're having to pick between right and wrong. You know, that free will, good and evil, that shit. Demons, angels, whatever, would do that. So, but demons, as far as I can understand it, weren't always just bad, good or bad. So there's a lot of people in history that did good things acting on those voices, and they were demons, demons. I'm going to play a clip right now to illustrate the point about the expression of Lucifer. And I'm not trying to tell you to believe in the devil and worship the devil and evoke the devil or anything like that. That's not what I'm trying to say here. But instead of taking the story as a metaphor, instead of taking the story as what not to do and as a lesson learned, taking the story as there's this being who did this, who's trying to fuck us up now, is what's fucking us up. Because that's not true. Plus, we're ignoring that this is something within us that can happen at any time. And by the very act of suppressing this, anyways. I'm going to play this clip. It's gonna say a lot of things that might not be, you'll grasp a few things, you won't grasp some other things. There's things I grasped, and I'm going to grasp more by listening to it. All I'm trying to say is, I'm going to play this clip, it's going to explain a bunch of shit, and then I'm going to expand on it, because that's what I'm trying to get to. I had a few drinks, so I'm not going to lie. But let's get to it. Right. They probably can't see me, but some of this video might be sideways and then upside down, but it will go right side up, just so you know. And then I'll chime in when it's all said and done to tell you how, once again, not telling you to accept Lucifer, or evoke Lucifer, or, be a Luciferian. I'm telling you that taking the story of Lucifer as some deity in hell who also has the ability to make you choose bad decisions is wrong, and how the story is meant to teach you how to not do those things, look what you look for, because you're going to do those things, you're going to fuck up every once in a while, but you read this story after you fuck up and you understand a little bit more, and then you can try to kind of put it into context whenever shit starts happening and figure it out from there. But anyways, so let's get on with it, and then I'll get in the house and let's have some better night.
The sin. But how and why did the idea of fallen angels even come about in the first place? Here's the untold truth of fallen angels. Fallen angels are basically angels that have given up on the good and righteous path and turned to evil, right? Well, not necessarily. It's true that Jewish and Christian traditions believe that fallen angels were originally just as holy as any of the other angels, but fell when the most beautiful of them, Lucifer, decided to rebel and enticed others to go with him. But in Hindu traditions, it's a little different. They believe the creator god Brahma actually made some angelic beings good and some evil from the very beginning. Why? Because it's meant to illustrate the natural order of things and balance in the universe. And fallen angels don't even exist in Islam, where tradition says that all angels are good, including the ones tasked with overseeing those whose evil souls have landed them in hell. These angels are lording over hell, yes, but they aren't fallen, as they are still doing divine work. There's another explanation for Satan there too, and it basically says he's not an angel, he's a jinn, a creature made from fire and free will. Put a pin in that because there'll be more about this pesky free will stuff later. Historically, those who believe in fallen angels typically have believed them to be responsible for things like tempting mortals into sin. And fallen angels are tricky about it too, sometimes masquerading as good angels as they torment and tempt. How do believers know all this? Well, these days, most of it comes from the non-canonical book of Enoch, which was written about 350 BC. The text claims to be the revelations of Enoch, who was taken up to heaven and told the universe's deepest secrets, then shown just what would happen during mankind's ultimate judgment. Enoch shows up in other texts as well, which claim he lived to be 365 years old and eventually told his tales to his son, Methuselah, who lived to be an impressive 969 years old. Strangely, even though the stories of Enoch were influenced by the mythology of places like Babylon and in turn influenced Judaism and Christianity, the only place that all 100 chapters of the book survived was Ethiopia. And among those chapters was a fascinating explanation on fall.
New day. I was gonna finish recording last night, but we were having drinks. I'm not good with people. Let's just say that. I like socializing as much as the next person most of the time, but more lately than ever, I have to force myself to do it because I know it'll be fun. I know I'll have a good time, especially at night. Now we're not allowed to socialize, social distancing and all that shit. But I mean, I know it's gonna be fun, so I force myself to do it. But because of old ways and habits, I always tell my wife I need alcohol when I'm gonna be around people. It's probably a bad thing, but I always get rum because I gotta use rum in my practice anyways. Gotta spit it on my, I gotta blow it onto my anganga, feed it as payment. Thought forms, a few of them take rum. A bunch of my ancestors and different spirits all use rum as payments and whatever else. So I mean, I always need rum in the house anyways. And if you look at my fucking Mickey I got yesterday, there's still like this much at the bottom, which is perfect. Which means I had probably about 7 shots out of it. Which I just drink straight, by the way. I don't mix it, I don't do anything like that. Because to me, it's like I'm not drinking to be social. I'm a drink. For the look of it, it's just like if we're drinking, we're getting a buzz, we're gonna have fun, we're gonna say things that we probably wouldn't say, get out of our heads a little bit, and then it's over. I don't want to drink too much. I don't want, because with the juice, sometimes that can happen. You piss like a fucking racehorse, blow yourself, too much sugar in your body, and just so much shit. So just straight. Now, don't get me wrong. When I laid down to sleep last night, I felt like I was spinning, but a few breathing techniques, and then I fell asleep. My wife woke me up because she wanted some, and I was fine. So, if you're ever spinning, you can, stop and just breathe. If you focus on your breathing long enough, you'll literally fall asleep. It should be alright. So that's just a drunk tip, let's say. But regardless of all that, so that's why I didn't continue my video last night. But so at this point, I believe you are at the first part of this video, and I stopped it, or it's further along than that. One of the two, I'm not positive. But I think it's very, I think this guy, I normally don't watch videos like this, the music in the background, how it looks, and, he's got all these things on the wall behind him, trying to show you that he's an enlightened person. So there's like the atom there, and I can't remember all the things that are behind him on that shelf, but they're there on purpose for your subconscious mind to think a certain way when you're watching him. So I generally stay away from videos like that, because right off the hop I can tell he's trying to mind fuck me, and trying to put off a specific appearance and vibe and what he wants you to think about him, right? He's trying to show you that he knows what he's talking about, and a bunch of other little techniques and NLP things, and not NLP, but I guess be NLP. Just these subtle little things you can do to people's subconscious minds in the background. So when you watch me, what do you see? You might see my Illuminati fucking symbol. No, actually, I don't even wear that necklace. You might see my pentagram, you see my dog tag, but you see the clothes I wear, and you see the ceiling above me. I'm not trying to mind fuck anybody. I'm not trying to trick anybody. I'm not trying to get anybody to fucking think anything, okay? Time to time, I put a sigil on my thumbnail or on my channel, and that's just and I've said this before, so everybody knows I do it, but it's using everybody who watches my channel's mind power. They see that fucking thing, their fucking subconscious mind just saw the symbol that I'm putting in my subconscious mind to manifest, and I'm trying to get to manifest my reality. So the more minds that see that symbol, the more likely and faster it can happen. So that's the only thing I do, but I'm still fueling I'm still utilize this subconscious mind just to fuel my magic. I'm just trying to get things to manifest faster, and everybody has this opportunity to do that. Anybody can make a YouTube channel, anybody can put these pictures on their social media, they can do whatever they want. So you have the balls to do it, that's the difference. It all comes down to balls. You have the balls to be fucking as a weirdo. I tried to hide my identity, my magical identity from my family and friends, but I failed at that, and they found out anyway, so now I have to own it, and it's just the way it is. I'm still not going to put Corey LeBlanc, the ceremonial witch, on like my fucking Facebook and Instagram. I got rid of Facebook. Fuck Facebook. I'm fucking done with that shit. Not that there's anything wrong with Facebook, just life. But the point is, I know I stay away from videos like this guy that I'm putting on here because he's trying to do something with all the things in the background, okay? okay? He's also got music on in the background, and there's some significance to that. Not that the music itself is any kind of harm, but there's a reason for everything. If you study in, anything that has to do with NLP, analog marking, the mind, the subconscious mind, how to trick, manipulate, any of those things, you'll learn quite a bit of techniques that you can implement very easily to get people to think you know what you're talking about, think you're smart. And, there's certain things you can, like I've said this many times too, there's things you can do, say, word patterns that'll literally just get people to watch you and won't be able to turn you off, but they still won't even really retain anything. But it's going right into their subconscious mind. So just keep that in mind. So this guy, I like what he says here. And I was very surprised that I like this video, that I agree with what he said. Now, he's got a biased opinion. He's obviously against Christianity to a certain degree. He tries to stay pretty neutral, I think. But for the most part, we can tell he's against it. Because his idea, and the main thing you're going to hear, the main thing you're going to hear here is that this man is against the organized religion that is telling us that we shouldn't be smart. We should not use our free will to choose, and we should not chase after knowledge and information. Doing both those things will lead us to, damnation and hell and all that shit. And he's against that. And from his point of view, the Bible and the Book of Enoch is trying to do that. Now, that came to me as a bit of a shock at first, because I always like to think of this Book of Enoch as something that is opposing and trying to break down the laws of religion and trying to get us to, go a little further. But it turns out, the Book of Enoch might be something to just help further program us. So that's where this guy stands.
On angels. One of the most widely told tales of fallen angels says it was Lucifer who rebelled against God and brought a bunch of angels down with him. But the story told in the Book of Enoch is very, very different. It tells a story of lust. According to the Book of Enoch, long before the Great Flood, angels and humans met and mingled pretty commonly, and the inevitable happened. Children. Those sons and daughters of angels were a race of 450-foot-tall giants. The angels started teaching their giant offspring evil ways, and God not only imprisoned them, but subjected them to judgment and set the flood to hit the reset button on his creation. Enoch, the story says, tried to speak on behalf of the angels and their giant children, but sadly, a lot of the texts are missing. We do know that Enoch was the one God selected to act as an intermediary to the fallen angels, instructing him to tell them what their punishment would be for their transgressions. They were to be condemned to the ends of the earth, with an eternity of punishment to follow. Early Jewish writers considered Enoch to be a prophet, but when Christianity started to adopt his teachings, he largely fell out of favor with Judaism. Christian writers then took the Book of Enoch with them when they converted isolated areas of Ethiopia in the 4th and 5th centuries. Though the Book of Enoch was lost to the rest of the world, it was preserved in Ethiopia and was finally brought back to Europe in 1773. In the meantime, though, with the Book of Enoch to guide them, Christian scholars and writers had centuries to let their imaginations go wild, leading them to the really convoluted origin of Satan as a fallen angel. See, that's not actually in the Bible, but theologians turned themselves into pretzels trying to explain how Satan exists in the first place. The reasoning went like this. God created everything in the universe, and therefore God created Satan. But the only thing God creates are good things, so therefore Satan must have been good at one point. He also needed to have the free will to turn bad, but since he clearly wasn't human, he must therefore have been a fallen angel. Clearly, these scholars went to the Princess Bride School of Logic and Reasoning.
Studying, you must have learned that man is mortal, so you would have put the poison as far from yourself as possible, so I can clearly not choose the wine in front of me.
Oh, and once more, there's that free will thing. Don't worry, it'll come up again. According to the Book of Enoch, the first batch of fallen angels was each responsible for teaching humanity about a specific sin. As Baal, for example, was responsible for teaching humanity about sex. So thanks very much for that. Tamiel, on the other hand, taught humanity about demons and spirits. And then there's Shernei-Haza, who is apparently responsible for that race of giant half-angels. Those giants, if you remember, led to the imprisonment and punishment of the fallen, as well as the Great Flood, which was brought to cleanse Earth of their gigantic sins. Perhaps the strangest fallen angel of all, though, was Penimu, who was credited with giving mankind something that led to all kinds of evil, the written language. With writing came knowledge, and that, of course, is really, really bad, because it might lead to free will. The big lesson you're apparently supposed to learn from fallen angels? That knowledge and free will are bad and will get you killed. So the only way to remain safe is to choose ignorance and obedience. Funny how that works.
There's a specific idea I wanted to finish. I can't remember what the fuck it was. But, I don't know if I'm playing this in the middle of the video. I was just showing you with the guy that said I don't really trust him, and all the things behind him. But I do like what he says in this, so, I do trust. I trust his information, because it's the way he's presenting the information is from specific points of views from other people, but it's still mostly neutral and just facts.
Clearly, these scholars went to the Princess Bride School of Logic and Reasoning.
Studying, you must have learned that man is mortal, so you would have put the poison as far from yourself as possible, so I can clearly not choose the wine in front of me.
Oh, and once more, there's that free will thing. Don't worry, it'll come up again. According to the book of Enoch, the first batch of fallen angels was each responsible for teaching humanity about a specific sin. As Baal, for example, was responsible for teaching humanity about sex. So thanks very much for that. Tamiel, on the other hand, taught humanity about demons and spirits. And then there's Sherne-Haza, who is apparently responsible for that race of giant half-angels. Those giants, if you remember, led to the imprisonment and punishment of the fallen, as well as the Great Flood, which was brought to cleanse Earth of their gigantic sins. Perhaps the strangest fallen angel of all, though, was Penimu, who was credited with giving mankind something that led to all kinds of evil, the written language. With writing came knowledge, and that, of course, is really, really bad, because it might lead to free will. The big lesson you're apparently supposed to learn from fallen angels? That knowledge and free will are bad and will get you killed. So the only way to remain safe is to choose ignorance and obedience. Funny how that works.
There's a specific idea I wanted to finish. I can't remember what the fuck it was. But, I don't know if I'm playing this in the middle of the video. I was just showing you with the guy that said I don't really trust him, and all the things behind him. But I do like what he says in this, so, I do trust. I trust his information, because it's the way he's presenting the information is from specific points of views from other people, but it's still mostly neutral and just facts. So it's not a bad video. I just don't like the symbolism in the background. The globe, the right hand, the atom. He's trying to present it like he's a side. Anyways, not gonna get into all that. But I want to play something real fast. Different video that kind of expands on some of his facts. So I'm gonna put that in here somewhere at the same time, just so you see that. So I'm just clarifying. But what my aim to do here is, from my fire that I had last night that you saw me not long ago in the clips with the fire, me talking about anger, invoking Mars, devil being associated to Mars, but also associated to Venus mostly, which is kind of what I want to play here. It's just the actual Latin words, I think, or Hebrew, I can't remember which one it is, but the actual words that the Bible was written in previous to this, before it was changed. And there's people that says, no, it hasn't been changed as much. And I know it. I read it in Latin. I know what it means, blah, 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 blah. It's like, okay, it's fine. Think what you want. But there's a lot of fucking shit that's been changed. So this is. But I'm going to play that for you right now just so you can hear it, so you can see for yourself how the shit changed when I get up in our language. And I understand that happens a lot, right? It's things from French to English. Sometimes they don't have the exact word from French to English. So I know some things are like that, and I get that. But then there's some other things that are just strange. The stretch that they make when they do the fucking translation is just phenomenal. But anyways, so let's go do that right now.
You've likely heard the story of Lucifer, the fallen angel. According to Christian legend, Lucifer was the most senior and most beautiful angel in God's heavenly court. He wanted to be more powerful than God and rebelled along with some other corrupted angels. After an ensuing heavenly war, Lucifer and other angels were banished from heaven and descended all the way down to hell. Lucifer, now a fallen angel, became the devil. His fellow fallen angels became demons. Okay, with me so far? Good. The story you've just heard is not in the Bible. Well, at least not in the way it's often told. The real origin of Lucifer is a lot more interesting. is actually one of misinformation, conflation, and one very curious mistranslation. Let me explain. Before we get into wars in heaven, fallen angels and hellfire, let's start with his name, Lucifer. It's just one of many names used for the devil, like Satan and the beast, and those names are used quite a lot of times in the Bible, but only once is the name Lucifer ever mentioned, and that's in the Old Testament's book of Isaiah. In chapter 14, verse 12 of the book, the prophet Isaiah says this: "How you are fallen from heaven, O Lucifer, son of the morning! How you are cut down to the ground, you who weakened the nations." Even though the name Lucifer is mentioned, this taunting remark is actually directed towards the arrogant king of Babylon, whose kingdom had just been destroyed. Isaiah is basically teasing him for it. So, "How are you fallen, O Lucifer, son of the morning?" kind of just means, "King of Babylon, oh look how the mighty have fallen." But why did Isaiah need to call him Lucifer? What's Satan got to do with any of this? Well, you might say, Lucifer was ungraciously cast down from heaven as well. So, likening the king of Babylon to Lucifer is actually a pretty good comparison here. And yes, you would be right. But the thing is, if you examine the text in its original language, Isaiah was never really making this comparison in the first place. When we read the same text in its original language, biblical Hebrew, Isaiah's taunt actually sounds a bit like this: Ek napalta mishamayim helel ben shachar, nigdata la'aretz cha'olesh al goyim. Did you hear me say the word Lucifer? No. Nowhere does the real Isaiah actually say this name. Instead of being called Lucifer, the king of Babylon is called Helel ben Shachar, literally a shining one, son of morning. In Hebrew, a shining one, son of morning, does not refer to Satan or the devil, but a planet, the planet Venus, otherwise known as the morning star. Besides the moon, Venus is the brightest body in the night sky, and because it's so bright, it's often the first star that can be seen in the evening, and the last star you can see when the sun comes up. Hence the name, the morning star, or in Hebrew, shining one, son of morning, Helel ben Shachar. So back to Isaiah's taunt about the morning star, and it all begins to make sense if applied to the planet Venus. By describing the king of Babylon as, O shining one, son of morning, Isaiah is likening the king's epic fall from grace to the movement of the morning star, which every morning appears to fall from the sky into the underworld. In the Sumerian religions of ancient Iraq, the goddess Inanna was associated with the planet Venus. There are several hymns of praise to Inanna in her role as the goddess of the planet, but a particularly famous hymn, Inanna's Descent to the Underworld, describes how, unlike any other deity, Inanna is able to fall from heaven, descend into the netherworld, and rise back the next day, just like the planet Venus does every dusk and dawn. We've established that Isaiah is actually talking about the movements of the morning star, the planet Venus. But how on earth did it become Lucifer? Well, once the Bible was translated to Latin by early Christians, they came across Isaiah 14:12 and translated the Hebrew word for morning star into their own word for morning star, Lucifer. Lucifer is a Latin word for morning star, with the word literally translating to light bringer. In Greco-Roman myth, the morning star was often personified and considered a god, and in some myths, considered to be the son of Aurora, the dawn. How did the morning star, Lucifer, aka Venus, turn so evil, and where do the fallen angels come in? To thank for that, you have the book of Enoch. It's an apocryphal biblical text written around 300 to 200 BCE, and it didn't quite make it into the final cut of the Bible, but was incredibly popular in Second Temple Judaism. In the book of Enoch, there's a chapter called the Book of Watchers. And in this chapter, we have the Watchers, who were dispatched to Earth to watch over humanity. But they did a terrible, terrible job, and they soon began to lust for human women, and, led by their leader Samyaza, all started to defect from God's command, and began to procreate among human women. The offspring are called the Nephilim, or giants, who pillaged the earth and endangered humanity. Samyaza and his fallen angel cronies also began to teach the humans certain forbidden arts, like weaponry, cosmetics, mirrors, sorceries, and other hidden secrets. Meanwhile, God's looking down in anger and disbelief, so allows a great flood to rid the earth of the corrupted humankind and those Nephilim, but first warning Noah to build his ark, as described in the book of Genesis. Afterwards, he gets his loyal angels to punish the fallen watchers, including their evil leader, Samyaza. Remember, none of this is actually canon for mainstream Christianity or Judaism. It's labelled as an apocryphal book. In today's terms, that's the equivalent of being a sort of Bible fan fiction. But at the time, people loved the Book of Enoch so much that it began to influence contemporary religious ideas. Even in the New Testament Book of Jude, the Book of Enoch is directly quoted. Around the time of Enoch's circulation, Jews and early Christians rummaged through the Old Testament to see if they'd missed any hidden secrets. And they just so happened to stumble on a little verse in the book of Isaiah. Instead of seeing it as a reference to the planet Venus, as originally intended, they found a hidden reference to that fallen angel Samyaza, as seen in the book of Enoch. And when early Christians read Isaiah in Latin, they came to understand Lucifer not as Lightbringer, but as a name for a fallen angel. And so, Lucifer, the name for the fallen angel, finally stuck, and was added to a growing number of names used for the devil, such as Satan, the beast, Beelzebub, and so on. Now each one of those names have their own fascinating origins that I'd love to cover in a future video, but for now, I'll leave it at that. And that is as close of an origin story to Lucifer as we can get. It's a story of how a planet accidentally became a fallen angel. Today's Bibles no longer use Lucifer in their translations, and instead use Morningstar in Isaiah 14:12. The story of how Lucifer got his name is such a rabbit hole, so I recommend to explore the topic yourself. As with all my videos, I provided links down below. If you're new here,
I'm going to use my Pathfinder here to do the rest of this video and finish it up, just so people know I'm not lying about the double car thing. There's my moonroof car. Gotta love her. But I don't think he's my wife, so I have to hop in Santa Fe here. So let's finish this video up, shall we? Alright, so I played that video to show a little bit about the actual text and what it says. And because the first video, I can't remember. I think he makes the reference to the King of Babylon and Jeremiah and the Watchers of Enoch from the one guy. Who I'm going to let finish up here in a second. But I played this one just because he gets in a little more details about exactly, it gives you the exact text and what it means and all that. And you can verify all these facts if you want. And I remember making an episode a long time ago, 2 years ago maybe now. Why does my radio keep turning on? It's insane. Maybe I'll just turn it down so you can't hear it. But so what I'm trying to get at here is this is a metaphorical story, whether it's the Watcher's story or the Lucifer story, whether it's about the Watchers coming down and taking wives upon them, or it's the Lucifer story, having the fight in heaven. These things aren't real. They didn't actually happen, and they are metaphorical, and they're to teach us a story, but this shit got spun. Now, the first guy says it great. The second guy also says it as well. How the philosophers or the Christian, I guess it was philosophers, I'm not sure, Christian mystics or whoever, had to spin it around how God makes everything. And so therefore God made Lucifer. But because Lucifer changed and went against God, they had to make Lucifer once good, once an angel, also have free will, be able to love himself and love God and try to blah, 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 blah. So they had to twist that all around. And then after, I think I just played it, and then I played the next part. And then he says they also had to deal with the fact about the fallen angels, because of all these other angels that came down to earth and do that. You got two different stories here. You got all the fallen angels that follow Lucifer, but then you have all the fallen angels that just came down and did stuff. So this is enough to try, it should be enough anyways, to show people that, this shit is fucked, first of all. That two different stories, but they're explaining the same thing. Now, real fast here, I want to show you something. This came to me last night when I was in the bathroom, because I was trying to work out, okay, these are stories, these are movies, these are like when people make movies, right? We mimic this. And I thought of a specific movie. I couldn't remember the name of it until I know it now. I remember the Goo Goo Dolls making the song Iris for this movie. And it's a Nicolas Cage movie called City of Angels. And I'll play you two clips here right now of this, okay? Now, all the shit we just talked about the Watchers fallen, the Watchers coming down and fucking women and making Nephilim, okay? And Lucifer fighting and then falling down. So I want to keep all that in your mind, but then watch this point of view of the same thing. There's two trailers. Hopefully I don't get fucking hit hard for copyright infringements on this. they're just trailers. So, but I'm going to play it anyways, and I'm going to hope for the best. And I might get blocked, so if you're watching this and this isn't on there anymore, it's because I got blocked, and I'll figure it out after. But I'll leave the links below for you to check it out, and then I'll explain the story to you. But
what if angels walked the earth, here among us, silent and unseen?
That doctor in the operating room, she looked right at me.
And one of them,
no one can see you unless you want them to,
fell in love with one of us.
And if I want her to,
what do you want to do?
to help her.
Are you a visitor? Well, who are you visiting?
You.
If you met the one you were meant for.
I got this feeling that there's something bigger out there. There's something bigger than me and bigger than you.
Close your eyes.
But you could not sense their touch.
I wait all day just hoping for one more minute with you, and I don't even know you.
You could not feel their kiss.
Did you feel that?
No.
And you could not trust your eyes.
I want to see you.
Would you still believe
Let me see you.
in love?
I don't understand a God who would let us meet if there's no way we could ever be together. I'm in love with you.
He can give up his existence as he knows it and become one of us.
You choose to fall to earth. And when you wake up, you're human.
Nicolas Cage, Meg Ryan, City of Angels.
Alright, so there's a lot in there. Okay, that was the two clips. The first one, I think, gave you a little more information, but the second one did good too, because that one guy you see, the heavier set guy, says he wants to give it all up for you. He was also an angel before. I'm pretty sure you gathered that from the second one. But I like how it says you can choose to fall to earth from a high height. If you want to go watch more trailers of it, one of the trailers is just him contemplating that and then making that fall. Okay. Now, if you want to go watch this movie, if you haven't watched it, you're gonna have to skip the next 5 minutes without listening to it, because I'm gonna spoil something for you. So here's your chance now. Skip ahead. City of Angels, Nicolas Cage, Meg Ryan, a fucking bomb movie. It's stuck with me my whole fucking life because it's such an amazing story. It's a tragedy, but anyways. But when it comes to the Watchers and what happened, it's another perception of it. And, this is just so perfect to show how these stories are archetypal and they get replayed over and over again. And then people might say, okay, we can see the Seth story and the Pinocchio story, or sorry, the Lion King with his bad uncle, Scar, with Osiris and Seth. This guy's name was Seth too. He's a fallen angel, right? Seth was the bad Osiris guy. Seth was one of the other people that started civilization. That's Adam and Eve's other child or some shit like that. Anyways, just an appropriate name for them to pick. Like, they did that on purpose. Everybody knows that. But anyways, point is, fallen angel, you couldn't call him Lucifer, and you couldn't call him whatever else. But Seth is the closest, another close dark name that, they could use. And it always seems to be like that. But he's not dark. He's not painted dark at all in this picture. He falls in love with Meg Ryan. Meg Ryan falls in love with him, but he can't touch, taste, feel, or anything because he's an angel. But all these guys are watchers, okay? They actually say that in so many words. They call themselves angels, City of Angels, right? But they're there to watch humanity, to make sure everything goes smoothly. That's their job. But him, out of all the other ones, chooses and ends up feeling something for humanity, falling in love with humanity. And it's a way of perceiving what happened with the Watchers. They came down, they fell in love with the women. Who could blame them? My God. If there's such a thing as a God, I'm not always, I know there's an awe and a something, energy source that's created all of us, but we're all part of him. So, but let's say you believe in God. Well, if God made anything better, especially to men, okay? This is for men mostly, but if there's anything out there better than a fucking woman, a beautiful woman, God, he kept it for himself, man. Straight up. He kept it for himself. Because, I couldn't do anything without my wife. I love her so much. You know what I mean? And then, and I love her, but, you see all these women, the clothes they're wearing and stuff like that, they don't even have to be wearing a short skirt showing their fucking underwear.
They could be wearing pants and a shirt, but sometimes it's just like remarkable how beautiful they are, you know? And, you know, that's to take anything away from my wife. She's way more beautiful than that. That's why I'm with her, and beautiful on so many different levels. The point is, like, who can blame the fucking watchers, you know? But the point is, this story is a point of view of how that happened. And it's perfect. Now here's the spoilers. So I was probably wrong before. I guess I should have probably. Oh, shit. So if you fast forward it to now, I didn't spoil it yet, okay? So now I'm about to spoil the shit for you. He becomes a human. He gets, I think, 24 hours with her, and then she dies. Fucked. He gave up his eternity. He became a human, which means he has to suffer, go up to heaven, whatever, after when he dies, okay? But he lost his immortality for her. And, you know, they ask him, the other angels, because he can see them. There used to be one, just like the one guy who used to be an angel, who talks to him, says, how can you see me? He said, I used to be one of you. And I chose to do this, and you can do the same thing. And he tells him, you have to fall to earth. The fall. What happened at the fall? Apparently it was because of the sin. And after the fall, Satan fucking did whatever to Adam. But anyways, in the movie, they ask him, hey, was it worth it? And he said, absolutely. Because as an angel, he can't experience things like we can. For us, everything is fleeting. Everything is going to die. Nothing will last. Nothing stays. You know, we have this illusion that, okay, I'm walking this 2-year contract, or for my example, for my car, fucking 5 or 6 years with this fucking car. It's going to last me those time. By the time it's paid off, it's still in good order, I'll keep it. Boom! Not even a year later, the fucking thing fucks up on me, and all that shattered. Nothing is a guarantee. And that's what makes this shit fucking beautiful. And that movie shows that. The angels in heaven and all this shit up there, whatever they fucking are, they're thought forms, first and foremost. But, you know, they don't get to experience the shit like we do. You know, they wish they could be like us. That story of whichever one you want to take, the City of Angels version of it, where the watchers coming down and God punishing them for whatever they did, you know, you can relate to that. We can relate to that. What we can't relate to is God. God has been unrelatable. The one guy says it, and the first guy I talked about, the one I said, you know, he's got a bunch of things in the background, and I know that's kind of there to focus your mind a bit. He says it well. He says, you know, the third of the angels follow Lucifer because the Christian philosophers had to twist it around again, because how can these angels that were created by God follow Lucifer? Well, they ended up saying that the angels were created with the ability to love God, love themselves, and love each other. And because they were able to love each other, they fell in love with Lucifer, who they thought was God, and they loved themselves, so they were helping themselves. They were helping the one they loved, and they were trying to help God, so to speak. So that was the reason they followed them. And because God was this absent being, there was only like, I don't know, probably 7 archangels that could talk to him. Lucifer used to being one of those who was directly able to talk to God, but all the other angels couldn't talk to God, so they didn't know the Creator, kind of like us. We don't know our Creator. So they followed Lucifer because Lucifer made them promises and whatever else. Kind of like Hitler. Got Germany behind them because they're having hard times playing something on somebody else. Archetypal stories, man. This one actually played out, though. But anyways, not the angel one I'm talking about. Nazi Germany. Point is, he says it in so many words that it's pretty sad. They don't know their own Father, their own God, and because of that, they want to feel something, they know something, so they turn to Lucifer, who, deceived them or just was trying to get somewhere and thought he could maybe help them. Who knows? I'm not here to play devil's advocate, no pun intended, but I'm not here to fucking cheer on Lucifer or bag on God or bag on Lucifer and cheer on God. I'm here to tell you that City of Angels, first and foremost, is an account of what happened for the Watchers. Okay, that one guy did it, and he did it, and the rest of them are going to fucking do it too. Because God can keep creating more angels, and these angels can keep becoming humans. Who knows? Maybe we really are that. Dolores Cannon and all these other people talk about how there was a cry for Earth after the World Wars, and when atomic bombs were being made, and even more machinery, and then we finally had the capability to be able to blow this bitch up. Well, there was a bunch of souls, our subconscious minds knew shit was fucked and we were in trouble, and a cry went out. So all these souls from all these other places, wherever they may be, whether it's angels in heaven or it's other, which, you know, the cosmos, they refer to a third of the stars in the sky fell with Lucifer. Stars, constellations, the cosmos. So when we talk about these planets and people from other planets and souls from other planets, maybe it is like angels. So we all came down, and I say we because I identify with that. And I know it's a fucked up story to identify with, but I don't care. I identify with it because all the past life shit I've tried to do, I cannot. I've been successful with a lot of different magics, and I cannot find my past life. Now, I'm not going to say I'm not saying I'm an angel or another being from another place. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying the only reason why I give a little bit of validity to that is because I've been able to see other people's past lives, my own family members' past lives, and I've been able to see fuck all of mine. Now, I'm hoping that changes because I think it'd be kind of cool, and I don't care whether I was a soul somewhere else or fucking reincarnated a million times. It doesn't matter to me one way or another. Don't remember that shit. That shit doesn't matter. None of this shit might even be true what I just said. So, whatever. That's a moot point. I won't even continue on that line of thought. But what I'm trying to say is when we take these watchers and demonize them, when we take Lucifer and demonize them, we are demonizing a part of ourselves. We can relate to what they did more than we can relate to God. Now, we don't demonize God. We can't demonize God. No one's ever going to do that. You know, well, some people have actually tried. They say God is really the demiurge and all that from the Gnostic shit and whatever, you know. But that's just changing polarity. That's turning the devil into God and God into the devil. And that's still not good either way. Either one of those is not good. Doesn't matter. Anytime you take any of these deities and you fucking, you know, fuck with them and turn them into something they're not, you're fucking up an aspect of yourself. Because what I come back to, and it's in Christianity, it's in the Hermetic principles, it's in most traditions, that we are all a part of the Godhead, of the energy source that makes everything. We're part of Venus, we're part of Mars, we're part of Saturn, we're part of whatever's bigger than those planets, we're part of the entire cosmos. We are nature here on the earth as well. We're part Earth, we're part from the fucking stars. We're part of it all. We're part of all of it. Therefore, whatever good or bad, if you fucking hate on it, don't understand it, and shun it, and don't think, you know, I'm not saying you to go out there and hang out with fucking killers, murderers, and drug addicts and prostitutes, and start believing in Lucifer and saying I'm a Luciferian and satanic worship. I'm not saying that, do that at all. But don't. There's a line you gotta find the balance of, okay? Like, knowing those stories and hearing those stories and archetype stories, instead of imagining it as there's an actual place in the center of the earth where all that lava is, which makes sense, right? There's lava, so it's kind of like hell. It's hot. But hell is probably more like cold than hot, depending on where you look. From Dante's Inferno to Lost Paradise, Milton's, to the fact that Inverno, Inferno, Iver, hell, all these words come from that Latin word, which is for winter, for cold, you know, then it actually would be cold, you know, when hell freezes over. Hell's already froze over. I tell you, fuckers. If there is such a thing, and I don't think there is such a thing, I'm just telling you, it'd be more likely to be cold than hot, because most people would rather be warm than cold. But anyways, the point I'm trying to say is, you don't have to identify with these characters. You don't have to think these characters are God or the devil. You don't have to have this polarity mix. You can take these stories for what they are. Lessons. Okay? Job, for example. The book of Job is God and the devil having a fucking bet. And devil does all the shit to Job, but only with God's permission. And the only rule God gives him is let Job stay alive, but I don't care what else you do. So he kills his fucking family. He takes away his health. He takes away all his material possessions. His fucking house falls and kills his wife and kid. And it was okayed by God. And, you know, Job still doesn't change faith. And that's the kind of faith we're supposed to have. And, you know, I was watching this documentary when I was trying to do the research for this episode. Maybe I'll play the clip of it. And there's this one really Catholic woman who believes in God so much. And, you know, I can hear the ideologies and the fucking stupidity coming out of her mouth. But then, when she talked about this, she had a great point. She's like, there's a lot you can learn from Job. And I know that, you know, my creator has my back and I'm ultimately protected, which is something I say. I don't say it in that type, but I'm like, your body is so smart. You are protected. The only thing that can hurt you is when something. So she said that, so she's got that down. I don't care how she understands it. She knows it. That's all that matters. It doesn't matter how you understand this knowledge, as long as you understand it. And then the next part she said was, and if for some reason, Satan does come in to tempt me. Well, my Creator has allowed him to do that, so there's a bigger lesson I have to learn. And once again, I was like, okay, well, maybe she's not so stupid. And maybe I'm stupid for judging her right off the hop because, you know, it doesn't matter how she understands this stuff. If she understands that bad things happen to her and the people around her because it's made to make her stronger and we can strive through anything and she's ultimately protected, it's like, that's part of my spirituality to the core. So if she can get that from Christianity, then great. And that's probably just more proof of why women are more, you know, in tune to this shit. Because you won't hear pastors or priests say that shit. Not too often anyways. They don't blame Satan for all the bad in the world. You know, and the same thing, they said it was, there was a point in time where the pulpit, the churches were explaining hell. Nothing in the Bible explaining how hell looks. And before Dante's Inferno and before Milton's Paradise Lost, they were getting people packed in the churches by exploring death, getting people to think about their death, scaring them that they're going to die and never see anybody ever again, promising them heaven. But if they fuck up, they don't come to church, they don't give money, they don't fucking repent, then they're going to go to hell. And they painted all these gory pictures of hell. And they realized that they were filling the seats by explaining and describing in vivid adjectives and detail how hell is. And it was like people going to the movies to watch scary movies, horror movies. Everybody doesn't like horror movies, but then some people really like horror. I watched Megan the Stallion or something the other day saying she really likes horror movies and shit like that and likes to understand the anti-hero. And it's like, well, yeah, most people do. We can relate to that more than we can relate to fucking God, like I just said. But more than that, like I said, they were selling out. They were getting everybody into the church and passing that thing around to get money by explaining and exploring hell, giving people that sense of, you know, it's twofold. One is everybody who I try to say that should come to church that doesn't come to church, who isn't here right now, they're going to go to hell. So they understand, you know, all the people they don't like, that they think are sinners and all that, they want to hear the place they're going. Like, fuckers, I'm going to be saved, but you're not, you know, that kind of thing. And plus, it's like the horror movie. It's like how people are attracted to the macabre and death. They want to understand it better because we don't understand fuck all about it. And it's something inside of us. We can't explain it, but, you know, there's a piece of Saturn in us, the Grim Reaper. There's a piece of Mars in us, you know, that killer side, which is not always what Mars only is, but that's the aspect, you know. Accidental death, murders, and violence and shit like that comes from Mars, whereas Saturn is more of, like, take your time. It's fucking garbage and shit's flying around outside. Fucking shit. But it's more the nature taking its course, you know. Things have to die off so we get new stuff. You know, the trees have to die to come back and blah, 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 that kind of thing. But that's all within all of us. We all have thatness, you know, present. And to not explore those things and not understand those things is to not understand a part of ourselves, a deep part of our energy and our being. So, and the simple fact that these church people goers want to hear more about hell than heaven is proof of that we are not exploring everything. We need to explore the dark, the light, and we need to understand it. I'm not saying we need to worship the dark. I'm saying we need to understand it. And not from someone else's point of view, from our own fucking point of view. Because we have all these pictures and all these ideas that are all in the collective of what hell is. So yeah, if you die and you believe in hell and heaven, and you ultimately think you're going to hell and said it enough times, and I'm one of those people. I thought I did a lot of bad things in my life as a kid, which I did. And then when I had a semi-faith, but it was more like a party line to sound cool and try to pretend I was tough, I'd go around saying, oh yeah, I know I'm going to fucking burn in hell. My only regret is I won't be with my wife and my kids. Whatever, it is as it is. You know, and then that's all changed completely now. Now I don't have to worry about that, first of all. But who knows what might lie there? Maybe the Egyptians got it right, that if, you know, and Napoleon Hill has got it right, where if you die in fear, then negative consciousness absorbs you. And if you die in happy and love and not fear, then you get absorbed by the positive consciousness. And most people die in fear. Therefore, that's why the devil gets more people going over, which is just the Napoleon Hill book, Interview with the Devil, or Outwitting the Devil, which has an interview with the devil, but which is really eye-opening. You should look at it. Not that there's a real devil character, and that's explained in there. But anyways, so all this is to say is these stories, the Watcher stories, the Devil stories, they're meant to teach us something. They're not meant to scare us into our faith. They're not meant to tell us that this is where we're going to go when we die. I don't know why that was used in Christianity, because the Bible itself doesn't have many references to that. There are some, and that's what I liked about some. I don't know if I played it or not, but a lot of the Christian writers, philosophers went back through all the stories of the Bible, Old Testament, New Testament, and anywhere where they can derive something that is close to hell, or something where they could find hell in that wasn't actually there. Like this, the snake was never described as Lucifer. But then Revelation, the last book, or one of the last books in the Gospels, written way after the fucking Old Testament, describes Lucifer as a snake and describes the fall of Lucifer. At the end of that book, which is supposed to be before Genesis, but it's way after Genesis, so there's a fucked up situation. But they are writing the beginning of the story at the end of the fucking book. And because they say that old snake Lucifer turned into a dragon, then that was enough for them to turn the snake in the Garden of Eden into Lucifer, which Lucifer Morningstar was just Venus. So all these different interpretations fucked everything up. They stretch it on this, to the point where now the snake at the beginning is fucking Lucifer. Some people say it's Lilith. The one guy even talked about how they added the fucking, the Babylonian idea of Lilitude to Adam's first wife Lilith. Added in there, The Ethiopians saved these, the books of Enoch. But it's not any better than all this other shit that we've already been listening to. And, it's just... My main point, once again, I think it's like my third video I'm talking about it, is by suppressing these things, you're suppressing a part of yourself that you need to explore. Now, I'm not saying you need to go up there and learn everything about Satan and the devil and do all this satanic Luciferian worship. No. But you need to at least be open and try to understand that these are stories and not real entities. Because when you have it in your mind that there's a real Lucifer, a real Satan, a real devil in hell who's doing the work for God, but at the same time trying to fuck with God by stealing the souls of his precious humans, the more you believe in that, the more you are going to blame the devil for everything you do, blame everything for everything bad you do. Everything good you do is going to be on God, and you're not responsible for any aspect of your fucking life. Now, once again, like I talked about the Christian girl earlier, when I talked about her, and like I said at first I thought she was an idiot, just an ideologue saying these ideologies and this fucking dogma. But then when she said some of the things that I agree with her, we come to the same conclusion, but she got hers from Christianity, and I got mine from my different spiritualities. Well, then I was like, okay, my apologies, girl. You came to the same conclusion by your own way, and that's my point of ceremonial witchcraft. Everybody should have their own spirituality based on what they can use, believe, and what they jive with, what they fucking connect to, what they intuitively feel is okay. And then from there, whether it's Christianity, it's fucking Islam, it's Judaism, it's witchcraft, it's fucking some Norse pantheon, the Greek pantheons, whether it's Buddhism or Taoism or any of these fucking spiritualities, if they come to the right conclusions, they don't give a fuck. But the problem is a lot of these religions have you suppressing the evil and only inviting in the God. And when you do evil, it's this deity's fault. And instead of, giving offerings to this deity and asking this deity to change, and instead of banishing the good things out of your life or fucking up the good things in your life, you ask this deity to banish and get rid of the bad things in your life. Because that's what these deities do. And then the good deities, you ask them to continue giving you the good stuff and to not do bad things, because that can also happen. That's a balanced spirituality, and I don't care how you do that. But most Christians are going to be like, well, I'm not going to give an offering to Satan to stop fucking up my life. It's like, well, if you did, it'd be like giving an offering to Saturn and asking Saturn to banish your poverty. Because if you're being poor, you're blaming it on Satan. Satan's making you fucking poor. And God says, well, don't worry, the poor will come to heaven. But it's like, well, Satan's making me poor and God's not helping me out. What the fuck do I do? Well, instead of praying to God to give you money, he's not going to do that. Pray to Satan to banish away your poverty. Or Saturn to banish away your poverty. Once you get rid of your poverty, banish away all the things obstructing you from getting large sums of money. using Saturn, maybe even Mars, Mercury, road opener, orange, use Mercury, he's good for that, he's speedy, and then use Venus, Mary, Inanna, and Jupiter, maybe not Job, but Jupiter, Zeus, Jesus, if you will, to give you the stuff you need, whatever the case is. See if it fucking works. You can put these fuckers to work. You know? Anyways. But my main point here, and the reason I played these fucking clips, was basically to teach and show you that these stories have been around for a while, whether they're real or fake. Okay? And I'm not going to say they're not real. It didn't happen because, anything's possible. But for our purposes, right now, your best bet is if in your subconscious mind you believe that these things are real entities. If you can consciously realize what I'm saying here, that these deities, these entities can help you, the bad ones. But you don't have to call them Lucifer, you don't have to call them Satan, you don't have to call it the devil. You can use Mars, you can use Saturn. These are planets in the sky. These are beings that have a negative polarity, but that doesn't mean bad. That means they have the ability to banish, to remove, to reject, to deny the bad things in your life. A good polarity deity is going to have the ability to bring you good things. And they made that very clear in the Bible that God is not what does the bad things. Even though the book of Job would say otherwise whenever he gives permission to Satan. But Satan has to be willing to do it. God can't do it. So right there, it's like, there's your polarity. God is a good deity. God can do good things. If he wants bad things to happen to people, he has to okay it, but he has to allow Satan to do it. Satan has to do it. Saturn has to do it. And Jupiter, which is associated to Job, Jupiter can be the benevolent king, give you things. So there's your polarity scheme. So you can twist it in your head. In your mind, the deities will still be the Lucifer and whatever that. These are real beings that live in your mind. And I believe wholeheartedly that even if you use Saturn and the devil, especially with time and repetition, then you'll start changing the subconscious programming in your mind. That these things are just deities, just archetypes, but that is still powerful, and that is still the symbolic language to get to our subconscious mind is through story. And that's why we learn in stories. That's why these stories are powerful, and we can use them, because these stories teach us who's bad, who's good, whatever. Now, these fallen angels and all this shit was made a little too evil. It's sold, but every year, the more we got smarter, the more we got intelligent, the more writers grasped onto this, they kept making the devil and Lucifer way worse, and all the watchers fucking grotesque and demonized and evil, and God and the benevolent and all the good things even better. And now we're at this point where it's like you gotta shun all the bad shit and choose the good shit. But then things, I can't say they're worse than ever because there's things to look forward to, but there's a lot of bad shit going on. There's a lot of people craving and starving for spirituality, but they have this internal conflict that's like, oh, I can't believe in Saturn because it's Satan and it's dark. If that's witchcraft, that's this, that's that. We're not supposed to do that. Even though the book of Enoch, they told Enoch that, all these watchers came down and taught astrology and taught this, taught that, but then they teach Enoch all that shit. So they picked Enoch, and Enoch was allowed to know it. And Enoch wrote it down for all of us to know. But the Watchers told humans it was bad. It makes no fucking sense. Because the book of Enoch has written down all the fucking things he learned. All the astrology things. Look it up. You'll see it. You'll see it. The second book of Enoch's more like an astrology book. But that was evil. They weren't supposed to teach us astrology. That was part of the problem. Then Enoch learned it and taught us all. It's a fucking archetype. It's just to explain how people using astrology in a bad way, it can be used, this shit can be used for good or bad, basically. Enoch was a good man. He got that information. He didn't use it bad. But the Watchers coming down, traded sex for knowledge, whatever the case was, and then maybe they used it improperly. Who knows? But the point is, I think that's one of the takeaways from that story is that, because obviously Enoch got it, and Enoch was this really good man, so he shouldn't have shared it with us, but he did. So obviously if Enoch is a really good man, and he shared that information with us, then we're supposed to know it. But that's why it wasn't put in the Bible, because the Bible says to shun all these things. You're supposed to be deaf, dumb, blind, not have any fucking free will, and just go around and let God do everything for you, which is not going to do anything, because apparently Satan can come and fucking fuck with you at any given time. So here's what you do. You fucking use these things to your benefit. Because they're all within you. We are all the same. When you're Christian, you're told you're part of God, Jesus in you, Jesus in your enemy, and all that shit. So you're part of fucking God. You also have the dark parts in you. And you can go either way at any time. The best thing to do is to not shun that evil side until it takes over. Not just ignore it. You have to deal with it as it comes. Because there's some times where you have to use that stuff in the best way possible. And the only path is to use banishing stuff. The only time that you can get through to somebody is if you release a little bit of anger. Sometimes you need to put down the law and use anger and yell and be frustrated and relieve that. You can't just shut it and say, no, that's bad. That's all these traits of the devil. Because then it's just going to fuck you up later. Realize thinking you don't have a dark side is going to fuck you up. You explore that dark side. So that's the point of all this. Anyways, I'll leave you with the rest of the first initial video. Check out that movie I talked about. It's a really good fucking archetypal story of the Watchers and the fallen angels coming down. And, there's at least 2 of them in there that come down, right? And it's a love story. It's a fucking bomb-ass movie. And, it's just proof that people wrote the Watcher story way back when. And then movie directors in Hollywood wrote fucking City of Angels. Fucking along the same fucking lines. Because we just keep, whatever. But seriously, you can find all this stuff by just typing in Lucifer and Fallen Angels into YouTube, and you'll find all the full-length videos that I put on here. And just do some study on it. See what you come up with. You don't have to believe me. You don't have to believe anybody. Okay? You should believe what tells you what's right. But you can't just go with what you've been programmed by somebody else first. So allow yourself to be in front of this information and see what happens and see what responses you get. See if you can find some guys that are factual and a little less biased, and see if some of the facts might not sit well with you. I think everybody had good intentions doing this shit. I think there's definitely some people that had bad intentions and wanted to use it. I think when people see something that packs their church and they think their church is the right way and they're trying to do ultimately good, then, things get skewed. But the fact that people that were against the church got fucking, killed and all this shit, and everything was turned into, like, even Dante. He was exiled. He was, and that's when he wrote Dante's Inferno. You know what I mean? Fuck, so anyways, that's the end of this. That's the end of me. I'm sorry it was so fucking bloody long, but, yeah. I hope you, heed the message in here, and, you can do this shit. Like I said, I had a fucking car that apparently my motor was blown. I was never going to drive again. And, it starts up, we can drive it around, and then we have a second vehicle, and I took my lemonade, I took my lemons, and I made fucking lemonade or lemon pie, or however that fucking saying goes, meaning I took my bad shit, and I was able to release my emotions. Not just, I said, no, if I stay positive, even though I'm fucking really pissed off right now, that good things will come. No. Get rid of all that emotion. Get it out. Let it out. Find an avenue. You gotta figure that out for yourself. What would be best for you? If you need help, fucking send me a message and tell me what your problem is, and I'll try to help, or, whatever. If you don't want me to say it out loud, well, then I'll private message you, or whatever the case is. Like, I had 2 fucking messages that were deleted that I could totally spit out here, and it's about the Bible and all that shit, and it would totally go well here, and I'm not doing it. So, that is as it is. So, but if you're having an issue and you don't know how to deal with it, you don't know how to let it out in the right way, but it's something that's really pissing you off, well, I may be able to help, but I may not. Best probably person would be psychologist, counselor, whatever the case is. Get yourself some real help. But if it's something similar I've ever talked about or I went through and you know it, well then, hit me up. And I'll fucking be more than willing and more than happy to help. But anyways, thanks to everybody who subscribes and likes and all that bullshit and comments. You don't have to, but if you do, it's pretty fucking cool too. But, yeah, I hope everybody has a great fucking night and stay fucking safe.
Maybe the biggest diversion the Book of Enoch takes from the regular Bible is this depiction of the Garden of Eden and the fall of mankind. Everyone knows the traditional story from the Bible. A serpent, usually associated with Satan, tempts Eve into eating from the tree of knowledge of good and evil. There's that whole knowledge is bad thing again. And then boom, goodbye paradise. In the Book of Enoch, though, it's not Satan who tempts Eve. It's a fallen angel named Gadriel. And this is the jerk who also went on to give humanity weapons and armor and teach us all how to kill each other. Sounds like Gadriel has a lot to answer for. Quick, describe a fallen angel. There are probably some scowly faces, bat-like wings, maybe even some horns or cloven hooves, right? Maybe a double chin. Who knows? But it wasn't always like that. In early Christian art, fallen angels looked pretty much the same as their holier counterparts. One of the earliest representations of the idea that there were angels and fallen angels opposing each other in an otherworldly battle is featured in an ancient mosaic in Italy. Jesus is in the middle, and on one side is an angel in red with some sheep representing the home team. On the other side are the bad guys, a figure thought to be Lucifer or Satan, standing with some goats. He's wearing blue, which is the color of the damned, plus he has goats, so we know he's the bad guy. But otherwise, he doesn't seem all that bad. The mosaic even suggests fallen angels kept their iconic halos, which at the time were a symbol of power, not holiness. It wasn't until the Middle Ages that images of fallen angels started turning more grotesque. During that time, something weird happened. Creatures from ancient Babylonian texts called Lilitu began to be associated with Adam's non-canonical first wife, Lilith. At the same time, parallels were drawn between Satan and the ancient Canaanite deity Beelzebub, and the ancient Roman half-goat, half-man god of nature, Pan. In the 14th century, these pop culture influences led Dante to describe Satan as lording over the depths of hell while sporting bat wings. And that, in turn, influenced the 17th century author John Milton to describe fallen angels in his work Paradise Lost as the sort of grody monsters we think of today. Remember those theologians who turned themselves inside out trying to explain how Satan existed? Well, they faced the same issue with the rest of the fallen angels and came up with some typically convoluted explanations. Until the 12th century, pride was the typical answer as to why fallen angels fell, but that meant God would have had to create something with a crippling, all-powerful amount of pride, and that didn't fly. So scholars came up with the idea that angels had been created with a natural love that allowed them to love God, themselves, and each other. It's the last part that scholars in the Middle Ages believe caused the fall of the angels. After Lucifer fell because his love was a selfish love of power, the other angels who fell did so because they loved Lucifer. God was largely an absent, distant figure after all, and Lucifer was their friend. Rather than condemning themselves to struggle for the acceptance of an unreachable father, perhaps they followed their brother into exile. It's kind of heartbreaking when you think about it, especially once you add love to free will and knowledge as things too dangerous for mortals to contemplate. According to the Mirabilia Journal, one of the most convoluted bits of theology that grew up around the legend of fallen angels is the way Christian writers used it to excuse and promote the persecution of the LGBTQ community. Scholars have long debated about whether fallen angels and demons are capable of love, with many believing that instead, fallen angels are consumed with lust, a desire to use others for their own ends. Indeed, Christian writers as far back as the Apostle Paul himself warned women about the danger of attracting the attention of a lusty fallen angel. But since they didn't write anything about fallen angels having lust for members of their own gender, early scholars decided that meant there was something so fundamentally wrong about the idea that even fallen angels wouldn't do it. This kind of self-satisfied circular logic was used as an excuse for centuries of persecution, which still continues today. Our contemporary view of fallen angels might suggest that they kind of got off easy. After all, though they might be in hell, they aren't exactly at the mercy of the demons there because they kind of are those demons, right? Well, not exactly. According to the Jewish Virtual Library, the 7 archangels, those are the leaders of the good angels who stayed loyal to God, count the punishing of the fallen angels among their heavenly duties. Each one of the archangels was in charge of particular facets of the otherworldly life. Jeremiah, for example, kept watch over the souls in the underworld, while Michael protects Israel. Gabriel is the overseer of paradise, and Uriel leads the host. They're the ones with direct access to God, and they're also in charge of punishing the fallen. Punish how? Take Azazel, who, according to some sources, was the one who taught mankind how to make weapons rather than Gadriel. According to the Watkins Dictionary of Angels, Azazel was punished by Raphael, who put him in chains, threw him in a pit full of sharp rocks in the middle of the desert, and brought the darkness down on him while he waited for his condemnation after the final judgment. That doesn't sound so great after all, and it's a pretty steep price to pay for expressing love and free will. Better luck next time, fallen angel.
That's it for my YouTube video that I played on. Now, this is not live, but this is me adding on to this video real fast. Just maybe a little thought for anybody out there who, doesn't know what to think about the information I just gave out there and all that. And I mean in the sense of, is it literal or is it metaphorical? And if you're more on the fence of literal, I would just like to point out maybe something to think about. If God created these angels and created Lucifer, and then Lucifer fell in love with his own pride, his own self, and managed to deceive other angels, these are direct creations of God.
no mother, no father. God created us, but he created us so elaborately. If you take this literal, he made us so elaborate that we can maintain ourselves, meaning we create ourselves. A man and a woman have sex, make a baby, that kind of thing. And then there's so many babies that, 2 women or 2 men, or people that can't have babies can adopt babies. Point is, we can do it on our own. We don't need God to create us. The angels apparently are above us, which is not the truth in what I do. The angels are these spiritual beings, and their job is to protect us. And they are created thought forms that we use for protection, to help us out. The archangels, I invoke them every time I do my rituals. So for anybody thinking I am doing the devil's work, you are very, very wrong, because I invoke the archangels every time I do my ritual. And I'm on first name basis with the archangels, and they got my back. So, and I have the permission to put this stuff out. They actually like me talking about this and getting people's eyes open, believe it or not. But we'll talk about that in another video. But what I'd like to leave you with is, if you think this is a literal story, the fallen angels that were created by God, whether you want to think of Lucifer or any of the other ones that fell, these are perfect beings that are above us, that had all this knowledge of good and evil, and whatever the case was, and they had free will, and they were able to love, and they fucked up. They fucked up large. Why would you think that we were made? Like, I guess what I'm trying to say is this: that these fallen angels, the story about the fallen angels, is a good story of how easy it is for us to make mistakes and screw up. We can screw up pretty bad sometimes, and that's a good takeaway. It's why it's a good metaphorical story. But if you want to take it literal, it's like, well, if an angel can't abstain from sex and abstain from going out there and spreading its seed and telling secrets and gossiping and, spreading word and knowledge and information, and they can't stay true to God and they question God themselves, then what makes you think that we have the capability to also do that? And you can say, well, that's what this story teaches, is that, this is what happened to the angels, so we better not do it. And it's like, okay, that's one way to look at it, but I think the better way to look at it is the consequences and the things that can go wrong when you do it. Not that this should be used to try to keep us in line. Be like, oh, watch out, you do any of this bad stuff, God's going to whip your ass. It's like, well, been a lot of people that did some pretty atrocious, heinous, violent acts, and their karma and what they received was nothing like this. And I know the idea of Hitler in hell getting a pineapple shoved up his ass every hour, something to that effect, like it was in the Little Nicky there, the Adam Sandler movie, is a great idea. Think about all his crimes, his war crimes he did, but the truth of the matter is he could just be a reincarnated soul somewhere else who never received that karma. So just to leave you with the thought is, something to think about is, simply put, if the angels have trouble sticking to God's plan and God's will and doing God's work, what chance do we have of doing it? And is that even what we're supposed to be doing? Because this book didn't come down from God. It came from man. It came from human beings that were trying to teach us something. And then later on, human beings that may have wanted to enslaved us and may have wanted to make us feel like, we are nothing compared to God and the angels and all that. But I'm here to tell you that we are more powerful than the angels and the demons and the devils and God himself. And when I say God himself, I mean the God of the Bible. I don't mean the all that is. We are all that is. We all make up that life force energy that most people think of as God. But God is not a big enough word to describe our Creator. And demeaning our Creator to the God of the Bible is something I think everybody should try not to do. But that's just a little fruit for thought. But we are all that is. Now, we aren't God ourselves. We aren't a God ourselves. But we are, in a sense, a demigod, because all of us make up a piece of God, and when we're all together united, we actually are God. And until we can unite and be on the same track and agree to disagree and realize that we got to just be on the same team and work together, then we won't ever see God until we do that. And, another thing I'd like to leave you with is something I learned from Birch. And it's a little thing he talks about. If you're running a coven, if you don't have a us versus a them, that's going to happen within your coven. And if you keep your coven bigger than 13 members, well, then it's going to happen much faster. You're going to have little cliques within your coven, and they're going to oppose you. So if you don't give your people an us versus them, they will create one within the group. And if you're the one in charge, you're going to be the them. Kind of like when your boss is your friend, then all of a sudden too many people get there, people feel oppressed, people start getting on board with those people, feel bad for them, and then all of a sudden the boss that was your friend is now your enemy, or everybody doesn't like the man. Well, it kind of reminds me of what happened with Lucifer and those 1/3 of the angels that were on his side. There was, even within heaven, that happened. Tower of Babylon, same idea. It got so big, so many people there. And apparently the story is God came down and fucked with them, said, oh, you're never coming up to heaven, and then changed all their languages so none of them could communicate with each other. But, and there's other interpretations of that story that say the same thing. There was separation happening there, us versus them, within our societies, within the political schemes of, well, even Canada where I am, but the US is really remarkable how it works there, the us versus them. It's literally a big polarity battle, so blue versus red, which is kind of interesting way this guy said the red was the good guys, blue was the bad guys. Like I said, he had a right hand in the background of his picture, even though he was spreading liberal ideas. Kind of makes you think he's on both sides of the fence. But wherever you have groups, you're always going to have an us versus them. It's very hard to avoid that, and that's because we're born and created into polarity, and we learn about good and evil, up and down, hot and cold, our whole life. So it's very hard to separate that. And the more depolarized you get, the less you see that as being important, and you can start to understand how to become in the middle. And then as a result of that, even this stuff about God versus the devil seems silly to you, and you're able to see a little more clear. And I would say that would even be the case if you're a devout Christian and you try to become depolarized. You would see and be able to agree with people that maybe don't have the same beliefs as you, but you can have, like I said with that girl, at first I thought maybe she was an idiot, and that's not very nice of me to say, and I know that. But as it continued on, as I realized that some of the things she believed in were the same as mine, just she learned it in a different way, I was able to agree to disagree on some things and ultimately see that, she has some wisdom within her. I never played that clip though. I know I'm talking about a clip I didn't play, but maybe I'll play it in a future video so you can see what I'm talking about. But that's the kind of thing I'm talking about. When you come to polarize, you can agree or disagree with someone who has different beliefs, and it doesn't matter. And that's how we get God incarnated on earth. That's the only way Jesus will return. That's the only way we're going to get salvation. Either that or we destroy the earth, and then we'll see the devil come back. But it's not going to be like how the Bible says it. It's literally going to be either we all come together or we all get separated. So let's choose the right path, shall we? Anyways, I hope you enjoyed. Have a great fucking night.